My name is Reverend Leslie. I'm one of your senior ministers along with Reverend Karen, who is our host today. And it is our honor to welcome you, and it's so wonderful to see this filling up sanctuary. It's so wonderful to look out into online campus land and see how many people are participating. I think we're back, y'all. I got a message from a congregant out on the pathway in the breezeway today saying how beautifully the community has navigated these waters of pandemic and quarantine and all of the changing, moving landscapes, how the continents are ever shifting. It reminds me of third grade when we learned about tectonic plates and how they're always moving and the rules are always changing. And leadership continues to come together to do our very best to meet the most open, most needs of the most people most of the time. So there we go. And so, I want to add my love to the COVID safety team, which, in case you don't know, that team has been meeting for over a year and a half and working their tail feathers off to make the safest, kindest, most loving, most fulfilling choices for the community. So I want to hear them applauded for again. So here we are. You may have noticed from Les's song there, today's title for our talk is The New Me. And of course, not the new me, right? The new each and every me that's in the room. So let's start at the very beginning, which is a very good place to start. At least one cheesy Broadway joke a talk. That's the deal, guys. That's the rule. So we have been on the spiritual hero's journey this whole year. We started at the beginning of January at this idea that there's a calling for each one of us in the back of our mind, in the center of our heart, that's beckoning us to something, and it's hard to step in, right? Because in my world, it's always a sock puppet in the back of my mind. You know, some people call it the critical committee going, oh no, you can't, you'll never, you're not whatever enough, you're too something else enough, you can't. And yet here we are, having decided to step out on that limb and claim whatever it is that was calling us forward, no matter how scary or different or uncomfortable it felt, and moved through all of these phases. And so when we look at it, this is where we are now. After this whole year, we got past the tentacle flames of scary death and rebirth. We have absorbed our gifts. We really claimed those gifts a couple talks ago. We leaned into the idea that the grace of God helps us both to reconcile the parts of ourselves that are not considered perfect by the conditions and the rules of this world, and also to kind of bring it all together into one coherent new person. And we're almost at the end. We are returning changed, but we're not quite all the way back to the beginning of the circle. And there's one more thing we must do before we step back into that hobbit village we ventured off from at the beginning of the year. I don't know if yours was a hobbit village or Tatooine or the house on Privet Drive or whatever your particular favorite version of the hero's journey is. I suspect mine was a closet under the stairs because, as some of you know, I have an office and a closet under the stairs at my house. When you take Harry Potter too seriously, folks. But we're there. We're ready to take that last step before we emerge back home. You know, they tell you you can never go home. Sure you can, but they're going to notice if you changed your hair. So we have to get ourselves all the way sure about claiming who we are in this new me format before we venture back home. And how really prescient it is to be having this talk right before so many of us go home for Thanksgiving, where it's a literal coming home for a lot of people, right? And so how do I fully integrate this new me in a way that I can re-enter, I gotta say Tatooine again, re-enter my home village, so to speak, without feeling uncomfortable in my own skin? We've changed so much, right? We've changed so much. Through the course of this year, many of us face things that we thought we could never survive. And we're here. We've had losses and shifts and gains that we never imagined we could handle. And here we are. Here we are. We're totally different. We're entirely different. Feel into it. See if you can even connect with who you were a year ago. What was that person most concerned with? Is that even on your radar today? No, we're totally different. So we're going to claim who we are now. Yes? Yes. We're going to claim it all the way. Yes. Unapologetic. Yes. Out loud. Yes. Big and bold and brassy. If you're too brassy, there's purple shampoo for that. The things I learned from Reverend Karen Russo, I tell you. Okay, so here's the thing you're most likely to hear along the way. If anybody didn't know you changed, you're going to hear this. You've changed. Good. You're supposed to. You're supposed to. See, let's see the slide that reminds us. Or not. I'll just say it really loud. Good. You're supposed to. You're supposed to change. We're supposed to change. And there's this attachment that sometimes people have to the definition of who we are that really isn't actually about us. It's about how they see us. Okay, here's the lesson for the rest of all time. Are you ready? You gotta really get ready. Are you ready? The definition and interpretation of you that exists in the mind of someone else is not your problem. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It doesn't have anything to do with you. So are you required to meet that definition? No. Are you required to address that definition? No. Are you required to dim yourself down to that definition? No. Would it even be a good idea? No. Because that's when we feel this thing that we call divine discontent. Anybody ever heard that? Anybody ever had that? That feeling that something isn't right. Something isn't right. We have to let go of any weirdness around the idea of shifting. I know it makes people uncomfortable when we grow because they don't know where the boundaries are anymore. But if we hold to this little spot in the ground that we've taped out for ourselves as our safe world, we cannot go on the spiritual hero's journey. The very first step takes us outside of that circle, right? So we have to let go of any weirdness around it. In case you need to hear this, changing your mind, your life, the rules of what you do and don't do, your preferences, changing any of that is not flip-flopping. It's not hypocrisy. It's not wibble-wobbling. It's not knowing who you are, and it's not manipulating anybody else. It would be stranger not to change than it is to change. What change is being open enough, open-hearted, open-minded, right? Has to happen on both levels, open-hearted, open-minded, to let in the information that's coming, both from out here, right, and from in here, and allowing yourself to be open enough to adjust how you live based on the data you're receiving. That's learning. That's learning. It's not wiffle-waffling. It's learning. We teach spiritual living and we live spiritual teaching. How do we live the spiritual teaching? We learn from what is taught, and then we live it out. That's the intention of science of mind. It's not inconsistent, it's growth. But we have to be open, right? We have to be open to the data coming in out here. And it can be data as all over the places. My mom really hates my hair. My mom is watching. She doesn't hate my hair. Hi, Mom. My doctor says I should do this. I've learned that I don't enjoy this activity. You gather it all together, right? And then you get the message from the inside that tells you this, do these things, or, ooh, mama, no, not that thing, not that place, not that person, not that activity, not that vibe, not that attitude that you've developed, young lady, not all that. And as we bring it all together, as we coalesce it all on the inside of ourselves, that's growth. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, had a really awesome way of talking about this. He talked about it in regular life, and he also talked about it as his explanation of what he believes happens after this life as we move into another expression of life. He called it evolving in an ever-expanding upward spiral. So Reverend Karen talked about this a little bit when she talked about the evolution, how sometimes it takes you close to the feeling of grace and sometimes it can take you a little bit further away. But you notice how it's always going upwards. It's not just grace that can sometimes feel close and sometimes feel far. It can be relationships, it can be activities, it can be vocational choices. Sometimes in our travel, we find ourselves far away from something that used to feel really important to us. And that's okay. And that's okay. That's the thing about a spiritual hero's journey. We can't go on the journey and stay at home at the same time. We can't do it. We can't grow and stay the same size at the same time. We can't be new and stay who we were before at the same time. So who the heck are we now? Right? Like the world went on a journey. We as a community went on a journey. Individually, we're all on our own journeys. And it's time to go home for Christmas. And I'm telling you, none of the hobbits are ready for me, man. They have no idea what's coming over. I still want second breakfast. That's the one thing that hasn't changed. You know who your Lord of the Rings people are when you make a second breakfast joke? So who we are now is this beautiful combination of who we were, the parts that still fit. Because lots of you still fits, right? It's not like I woke up in June and was like, no more Harry Potter. Yeah, that one's not going to happen. Dude, I bought a stuffed Hedwig yesterday. It's real cute. It's fluffy. So who we were, the new gifts, the things that we were talking about a couple weeks ago, the things that we can now see anchor the depth of who we are, and the things we've picked up along the way, right? So some of that, some of who we were, some of the grace of God that Reverend Karen was pointing to, that is kind of like spiritual spackle, right? It feels like parts of the old and parts of the new might not fit together so well, but then the grace of God, all right, here's my practitioner Vernice Reyes impression. Are you ready? I've been working on this for like 10 years. And then the grace of God pours down over me like honey, and it fills any wounded place, and it just softens all of my feelings and my emotions, right? She's real good. So all of that comes together, and then we got to add a spicy dash of choice. There's some choice in here. You know, we are thinking, meaning, creating individuals. And so, of course, there's choice. Wayne Dyer, the late, great Wayne Dyer said, "You are what you choose to be today. not what you've chosen to be before. Today you make the new choice. And each day, conveniently, is today. I promise, you wake up tomorrow, it's going to be today. 3.5 weeks from now, you're going to pop up from bed on a Thursday, and it's going to be today. And when we think of it that way, it loosens us up from this need to have the grand January 2nd, 8 a.m. self-definition meeting. Who am I now? I haven't had my workshop with Reverend Karen yet. I don't know my word for the year. Can I not live until the 5th? Each day, we get to define it. And yes, of course, we enjoy these great rituals where we set the intention for the year or for the period of time, and all of that is juicy and wonderful, and we do it. And when we think about it, we're literally doing it every time we intentionally look at, so how am I going to show up right now? What works for me right now? What am I willing to accept for myself and of myself and from myself right now? Right now. Because I'm so sorry if this is news to you. Take a deep breath. You're going to keep changing. It's not done at the end of the year. I know the chart and the little graph ends, right? The chart comes to an end. It doesn't stop. We'll send you a fresh chart if you need it for next year. One where you can draw the arrows in. It's going to keep happening. We're going to keep changing because we are humans made in the likeness and image of an infinite creative force. We can't be made of God to be of God as God and not keep making stuff in here and out there. It's how humanity functions. And we can turn away from it. We can be like, oh, these flowers are real nice and nothing is happening out there. Nope, I'm ignoring it. We can do that. Is it going to stop change from happening? Nope. Nope. Is it even going to stop change from happening in here? Nope. Nope. It's going to keep happening. So it's important that we take the time. For some of us, it'll be 3 minutes in the shower, and for some of us, it'll be the next 8 weeks, to get clear with what am I bringing forward from the previous me? What have I added to the pile? What am I choosing? And where is the grace of God pulling all this together? How am I going to show up? And then once we have self-defined who we are, we have to absolutely, unapologetically, out loud, authentically own it. As another beloved and I were discussing out on the patio, it's not going to please everyone. You know what pleases everyone? Literally nothing. One of my kids doesn't like chocolate. Right? I thought for sure that was the one guaranteed everybody pleaser, but no, Christopher will be out there trading his peanut butter cups for licorice every Christmas morning. Now he has a wife, so she just takes them all. But there's nothing that will please everyone. There's no personality trait that will please everyone. There's no life choice that will please everyone. There's no self-care that will please everyone. There's no line in the sand that everyone will honor. There just isn't. There just isn't. And so at a certain point, you have to decide, this is who I am, this is what I need, this is what I'm doing. And if it doesn't work, we're getting to point 3. If it doesn't work anymore. Because it won't. Some people, some situations, some relationships, some jobs, some communities, some things won't fit anymore. It's just true. It's just true. And let's all just take a moment to acknowledge how much that sucks. Right? It can be so absolutely crystal clear that you are not where you are supposed to be anymore. And does that take 1 micron away from the pain of the release of that which no longer serves? Nope. Wouldn't it be cool if it did? But that's just not the way hearts are built. It's just not the way hearts are built. It's going to be hard. And that's okay too, because it's honoring the data. I didn't know how practical I was until this pandemic. I don't know that I would have defined myself as practical, but there's something about honoring the data, honoring the information present, that has really sort of gelled for me through this interesting period of time. And when we honor the data, as long as we recognize that the stuff coming from the indwelling spirit is as important as the data out there, and we try to take it in as much balance as we can, right? When we honor that, it gives us grounds to stand on when we need to either make a strong boundary or make a change. It gives us something to help mitigate the emotion of it all and the hurt feelings and the weird sense of exhilaration that comes from the I'm out of here. I'm the queen of withdrawal, so I have many times said, inside and outside, fine, you do it. I'm out. That's my naughty no-no behavior on the releasing prayer. If you've gotten to that part of what's the thing I do? That's the thing I do. And I can tell, because on the inside of me, if I'm acting out, I know it's a shock that I would act out. Try to control your shock. There's an inner imbalance that happens when I do it, when I'm just, right? I feel the free fall on the inside of me. And then there are times when I'm like, you know what? No. And I am just rock solid. So I invite you to take that into your own self-searching when you're in the place of, this doesn't work for me anymore, in a relationship, in a job, in any kind of activity you're in. If you're in the place, I just don't have words for it. I'm a hand motion girl. I make hand motions. If you feel like you're falling, or if you feel like you're anchored, it tells you a lot about where your head and heart are at. Sometimes things change that you thought would never change. I read a story this week about a gal named Claudia, and she was married. She's an American citizen married to another American citizen who's in the military, and they had been stationed by choice in Southeast Asia for decades. And she was a teacher, an English teacher for an expat school that also invited in students from the local military. So she had American-born students who'd lived their whole life in Southeast Asia, and then she had Southeast Asian students whose parents worked with the American military teaching English, right? And she loved her job. She loved those kids. She was good at it, really, really good at it. And then it became really clear to her that something had shifted in her marriage that made it no longer tenable. So they separate, and she said, that was actually pretty easy. That one was pretty easy. She was ready for the change. He was ready for the change. They just let it go. She's still living in their small town in Southeast Asia, teaching at this school, and she realized, in this community, I am now so-and-so's ex-wife that's still here. Is that how I self-define? She was feeling less satisfied with her job of working with the kids, which can happen after a couple decades of anything, right? And in this small expat community, she just didn't feel as embraced, as held, as loved anymore, and she struggled. She hadn't lived in the United States for 18 years. And the thought of moving home didn't feel like home at all. It felt like moving to a foreign country and doing some completely other thing that she'd never done. But she did it. And when she moved to New York, interesting choice. She didn't move back home to Massachusetts. She moved to a new place, a brand new place in New York. And did she go teach kids? No, she didn't. She picked a new, totally different kind of job that involved helping Americans who wanted to move to other countries learn what they needed to know to be able to take that step that she'd taken and hold them in support along the way. And do you know what she found? She was genius at it. She was better at that than she'd ever been at teaching. She was more fulfilled by it than she had felt in a long time. And she built a new community and a new family around her. At the end of the first year, she returned to her journal, the journal in which she wrote on her first morning in New York, "What have I done? I blew up my life." Can you feel that? If you've ever made a decision that blew up your life, I bet you're right there with me right now. What have I done? I've blown up my life. Ooh, I really feel that. The first day of the next year, she wrote, "I wish I could go back and hold me then and tell me how good it was going to get." There's something in us that calls us to the next thing. And that little booger usually doesn't tell us what the next thing is until we've stopped doing the last one, which is not polite. But we have to believe it because new things will call to our hearts. The next thing comes. And then we change again, and the next thing comes, and then we change again, and the next thing comes, and we change again. And people fall away along the way, and that's hard sometimes. And people join in along the way, and that is beautiful. And that is life. And that is what it is. Our seasonal theme right now is celebrating freedom. And Ernest Holmes said, "True freedom is the ability to make conscious choices in every aspect of our lives." He didn't add even the hard ones. He didn't add even the sucky ones. He didn't add even when you have to leave something good to find something great. But all of that is true. All of that is true. So this is my invitation for each and every, this week, this for all the weeks, basically for all the weeks forever, this is my invitation. Feel into your definition of who you are with everything you have now. Fall away the things that no longer fit your definition. Just let them go. Open up to the new things that have been revealed and embrace them. And let the grace of God sort the rest out. Because it always does. It always does. Let's take this to prayer. Breathing into this space of open-hearted, open-minded openness. We just recognize that the grace, the love, the divine intelligence of life itself that we call Spirit, God, the One, is always present in and through and as every single beloved, everywhere, everyone. And as a person or an organization rises up in our heart that says, but not that one. Yes, that one. Yes, that one. Everyone, everywhere, all the time. How good it is to know that that spiritual path to the right next step is always rearranging itself under our feet so we can't miss it. We can't fall off. Spirit's got us, each and every one. And so we lean into it. We trust it. We let it hold us in unconditional love, in unconditional acceptance, as we learn to do that for ourselves. So grateful I am for this teaching and the way it has led each of us to a deeper understanding of our own divine truths. It is so good, and so it is.